That's right. That's the energy. Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome, everyone. Am I a good enough parent? Well, tune in and listen to this discussion. I am Dr. Bolanle and psychiatrist and founder at Bright Minds MD in New Jersey, where we help people with depression, anxiety, and other mental health concerns feel better and live better using fewer medications and wellness practices. I'm excited today to have my friend and fellow psychiatrist join me. She is Dr. Zainab Al-dhaher. She is a child and adolescent psychiatry, working in an outpatient setting like myself, except she's on the other coast in California. Thank you for making the time to join us today, Dr. Al-dhaher. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well.
Awesome.
Thank you. It's always nice to chat with you.
Always. Thank you. So
thanks for having me.
Thank you. And both I and Dr. Al-dhaher, we're both moms, we're both parents, and we're also psychiatrists. So imagine all the fun I think that goes on in our heads and our lives as we navigate, this whole parenting challenge. And we picked this topic because it's something that's coming up a lot. In my practice, I imagine you're getting this question as well from parents, moms especially, wondering if they're doing enough, if they're matching up to the ideals in their heads, if they're giving their children all they need to be successful. So it's a question we deal with. It's both professionally and personally. So we thought it'd be good to talk about that. So I will start by asking a very simple question.
Sure.
What makes a good enough parent?
Okay, well, this whole concept dates back. It's an old concept, all the way back to the person that came up with this idea, or this concept is a pediatrician by training. Dr. Donald Winnicott came up with this theory, or this framework of how to think about things in terms of parenting. He was a pediatrician and a psychoanalyst. And he was very interested to know what was the relationship like between kids and from early infancy throughout, and how much or how little of the attunement and the responsiveness that parents needed to have in order to raise children that were securely attached and competent and autonomous. And so he looked at this, he studied this a lot. There was tons and tons of research back in the 50s. And really the upshot of it was that the parent, or the primary parent, doesn't need to be 100% attuned 100% of the time. And it's actually closer to 30% of the time that you've got to have that consistent responsiveness or ability to tend to the child's needs. And so basically, and that's the rough figure that from all of the data, 30% is, as long as you're getting it right, or as long as you're responding in an appropriate and loving and warm way to your child's needs, about 30%, a third of the time, then you can't really. So that's very far from 100%. And I think
I need to yell this out loud, because I have so many moms that I'm taking care of who worry about the smallest little thing, the smallest little mistake, and think that if they're not being 100% of the time,
oh my gosh,
they're horrible moms. Their children will turn out awful, or they've ruined their children. 30, okay, 30%.
30. And I mean, you're really aiming for, if you're half a coin toss is even more but it's nowhere near 100%. And I think this is really relevant. And I think this is why in our own conversations as friends, as moms of young kids, we've talked about how in this day and age, there's this constant, and I think social media is wonderful in a lot of ways, but in other ways, it's not helpful and straight out damaging, because you think there's this standard that you're just really not meeting the mark and you're really falling short. And the standard, or you look left and right and you're scrolling past your feeds, that, oh my gosh, I am just missing the mark by a ton, and there's no way. And then there's how am I not doing well? I'm not doing enough, and what is enough? And this whole concept, I think, is very relevant now. I mean, by the way, from the 50s, from when all this research and this concept came out, to present day, neuroscience findings, they've continued to study this and do all of these various, experiments, and they've confirmed that it's about that. It's about that. So about that number is correct and valid. That,
it's consistent over years, even though like what we actually do in standards of parenting and emotional responsiveness have changed, is still like, if you're doing 30%, you're doing enough.
That's what your child needs. And I think that the reason that I've been thinking about this more, this has come up in that I see in my practice, kids, teens, adults, work with families, so people of all ages, but people who either the primary patient is the child, or the primary patient is the parent of a child who's, and I see this a lot where I think in this day and age where it's so easy and it's nearly impossible not to compare yourself because of online and social media and that. I think it's even more important to just think about this and just step back and think about, okay, how's this concept and what is this really saying and how is it applicable, and how can I rework things to say, oh, that's the standard, and that it's actually quite, it's not in the service of your child to aim for 100% and perfectionistic.
What do you mean?
So when you think about our response to our children, and we often think, okay, we become a parent, I want to respond to my kid because they're the center of my universe, and I want to do everything I can to make sure their needs are met, and they know I love them, I know them, I'm there for them, I know that they know that I'm a consistent parent, all of that stuff. But it is impossible to do it 100% all the time, and even if you're getting it to almost, or you're getting it to near 100%, it's not useful for your kid because that's not mimicking the real world, because they're
the center of your universe, but they're not going to be the center of the world's universe. And what a rude shock it will be when they go out and no one.
And even think of the pressure. Even think of the pressure that, okay, my parent, I'm the center of their universe. I'm their son. That they're evolving around, and then what if it happens when I grow up? What are they going to do? That if they don't have me, then are they going to? Because then that builds up resentment, that builds up pressure, that builds up to know that, oh my gosh, my parents' whole world is about me, and so then what happens if I start to develop as normally kids as they're adults that they? So it's important that we also set them up. Our job is not only just to take care of their needs. And again, infancy, going into toddlerhood, going into school-aged kids to adolescence, the needs are different and they become more autonomous and development. That's the way naturally things go. But it's really important that that they learn how to respond and understand that we can't be there for them all the time, because that's the real world.
It's reality.
And we need to teach them how to deal with the frustration of not having all their needs met by us all the time. Because guess what? In life, there's frustration, disappointment, unmet expectations. And if they kind of get used to that 30% or 50% or whatever, that half the time their needs aren't always being met by you, that's the primary, the most important relationship, then they will learn how to deal with frustration and learn how to move through that, so that then they're more set up for success in the outside when they're met with these things with their friends, their peers, their teammates on in their team sports, in their relationships, in their own intimate relationships as they move forward, their coworkers, because that's real life. You just can't meet their every single demand. So it really is important, because then it builds resilience. It builds the skills to be able to move through the frustration, so that then they can be more successful in life and have a more realistic view of themselves and how they can't have it, and that's okay, and that's real life, and we'll be okay. So
if we're gonna draw it a little further and get extreme with it, we live and say that if a parent is 100% responsive or 100% of the time, they may actually be doing more harm than good when it comes to preparing their children for the future.
Absolutely, and that's what Winnicott found, and that's what other neuroscience has come to confirm and validate, is that you're doing more harm than good if you are being perfect or aiming for perfect. Because the other thing that starts to happen is that then the child will internalize that they need to act that way, and they need to always be
So we
perfect,
create
and they can't
perfectionistic
miss.
children
Yeah, and
who are
that's a really,
anxious.
it's not sustainable, and it's not, and then
Sustainable.
they start to then think, well, then I'm useless or worthless, or then I can't, then I'm meeting the mark, and then, because then you're setting up an unrealistic ideal for them to aspire to.
And then they'll fail always, because ideal and perfection is
Yeah.
pretty much unrealistic and unattainable.
Yeah.
Throughout life.
And you can't, you can't perfect parenting. You can't perfect, and even parenting, you can't perfect any relationship. It's not even so much about, for sure, in our context, it's about parenting. But parenting is a relationship. And so even think about your best friendships or your relationships or your partnerships. There are ruptures and repairs in every relationship, even the strongest. And actually the rupture and the repair after creates even stronger and more deep connected relationship. And so I think it's important, to really just let that sink in.
Okay. All right.
Like, it's not perfect, because you cannot perfect a relationship. You will fall, and that's life.
And so, we have to permit ourselves to allow even our parent-child relationship to be a work in progress, so to speak.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I wanted to harken back to what you said earlier, though, about the model, like, the Instagram, the social media mom, that people pattern that about. And that resonated with me, because I've seen, this is something I hear. People are like, this is what a mom should be. This is what a mom should do. This is what everyone is doing. And I'm like, what everyone? Have you gone into these people's homes that you see on Instagram? Is, like, do you see what it looks like behind the camera? And I find myself asking these questions, and sometimes sounding ridiculous to my patients, like, who is this model that you're modeling after in your head that you can never live up to, that is now causing you so much distress, so much guilt, so much feeling of worthlessness, because you're not measuring up to this media idea of what a mom is. So I want to ask you, what are some I'm going to ask this question in two ways. What are some practical examples of what maybe we should aspire to, of what being good enough looks like? That's one question. Or another way I could ask that is, what are the things that you need to do to be good enough as a parent, to give you a parent, practical, what's good enough? I don't know if that question is fair or understandable enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that 30% number, whatever, even if you think about it, like, even if it's a coin toss or half the time or something, it's this idea that I'm going to try my best to, with the intention. The intention is really important with anything related to parenting, is to pause and think, okay, what do I want at the end of this? Or what would I like my relationship to be like with my child? And what would I like them to, at the end of all of this, like, what do I really want here? What are my core values? And when you think of, okay, one of them is to be responsive to their needs and to know that they can rely on me and I'm a safe space for them. And part of that is the being responsive, right? This whole, like, parenting and being available. And the good enough thing is that we cannot be available to them physically, mentally, emotionally, every single moment of every single day. So that's really the concept distilled. So when we think about it, like, what does this actually look like in real life, or good enough, is that, okay, I mean, just thinking about last night, for example, I mean, cooking, making a meal, and you cook a meal, and let's say I've got young children. So you cook a meal for the family, and you put it, and then one of my kids comes and scoffs because they're upset at whatever it is. And then you think, oh, man, there's the perfectionistic side, or the part that's the whatever, the Instagram, whatever, where everyone's so happy at the table every single meal time. It's not realistic. So the perfectionistic urge might be, okay, let me cater to your every need. And what do you want, honey? And I'm going to go and be a short order cook and whip up something that you want. And then I've heard this from my own patients where they tell me, I'm exhausted. I'm making 4 different types of dinner for my family to keep everyone happy. Because I think that that's what a perfect parent or a perfect mom is, meeting everyone's demands and customizing it just so. And I would say in that case, that's this example, my kid comes, they don't want the chicken that oh my gosh, it's chicken again, or it's, whatever it is, pasta again. You just sit with it for a sec and just take a beat and give space for that frustration. Okay, I can see you're disappointed. I know it's a bummer. I had a long day at work. I had to, this is what the meal is. And you maybe just kind of hold back from that urge to become a short order cook and let me whip you up this and let me whip you up that, and say, all right, well, if you don't like this is what I've cooked. This is now it's dinner. It's too late for me to go and do anything else. You could have a bowl of cereal. You offer an alternative that they develop, depending on their developmental age, can do and can basically make themselves. So they can whip up, or they can, if they're more like 9, 10, they can make a sandwich or something like that. And say, or you can have the meal that I've prepared for the family. I mean, we live in the Western society. Your kid is most likely well nourished, and it's not like we're afraid that they're going to go hungry and starve and die after not having one dinner. They're going to be fine, most likely than not. And then you can say, the next time I'm going to be cooking, or there's going to be either tomorrow, the next day, the weekend, what would you like, so that I can have the ingredients, and you plan for the next time, because it's not the only meal you're ever going to have, and maybe they're requesting something or they're craving something or whatever. But you don't want to set up this situation where, okay, I expect my mom to make me happy, and this is it, and she's going to deliver, because that's where you start getting into this idea where you're aiming to be perfect and sad. Because guess what? When they go out to college and they don't have the food there, what are they going to do when they're disappointed that in the cafeteria is not serving what they like? Or they move out with their girlfriend at some point and the girlfriend is a bad cook and you want to set them up to deal with this very normal everyday kind of frustration of, okay, well, this is the option. This is what we have to work with. You don't like it. You can have a bowl of cereal, or you can go to bed and have a bigger breakfast tomorrow. And I'm sorry, but you do want to pause. I think that's the thing about, we don't want to brush off or go too quickly past that point of frustration, because I think that's important, to give a little bit of space to that frustration. I see you're disappointed, I know, but be genuine about it, as opposed to, and we're not perfect. So sometimes, depending on the day you've had, depending on how much you've slept, you might want to say, well, too bad, what kind of brat, I can't even appreciate that good chicken I put on the table.
That's right.
So you're going to give yourself grace. You're going to have those days where you snap, where you, but again, it's the repair. If you do, then that's fine. You're human, but then you want to come back and say, honey, snapped at you. I raised my voice. I'm sorry. I was frustrated. I had a long day. I was a little hurt because you insulted my chicken.
so modeling a whole lot of things in that scenario, allowing
modeling. I'll say this could be a whole nother conversation of kids might not always listen to what you're saying, but your kids are always watching what you're doing. Always. And that's your relationship with your own partner, how you're behaving, your stress level, your relationship with your phone, and more than anything. So even with this, and I'll come back to this, but it's important that any chance you can get to,
model good behavior or repair.
Yeah. Another thing was, for example, this also happened to a patient of mine, where they've got their young child, their 8-year-old is in baseball, and they had a baseball game, and they always want mom there. All right. And because they're, that's important, and I get that. And mom, I think, had something else going on with a family. I think they had some other family obligation. and they couldn't make it. And so they were like, well, you know, dad's going to be there, or aunt's going to be there, or whatever. And then the kid is tantruming and this and that. And it's like, okay, so in talking through that situation, we're acknowledging the disappointment. The mom, I say, acknowledge your own disappointment that you want to be there, but you can't always. And sometimes you do have something else that pulls you in a different direction. And you have obligation not only to your child, but you have obligation to other things, and that's okay. And that's the whole point of the whole good enough, is that like it does feel like they are the center of our universe as our own children, but they're not the entirety of our universe. We can also have jobs and careers. And if you don't have a job or a career, you have your own family, you have your spouse or partner, you have your community or religious obligations, you have obligation to yourself. You know, it's okay to even say, no, mommy can't play with you right now because I'm doing my exercises, or I'm gonna go and I gotta go to the dentist, or I gotta
help them
get my nails done, or whatever. Yeah, and that's also important modeling, because then they're gonna go forward and say, I'm not gonna be this whole idea. I think even just culturally, you know, this idea of a martyr.
Martyr mom.
Right? That in the whole Instagram thing, oh my gosh, like look what this mom or this parent's given up everything for the satisfaction of their kid. That's what makes a good mom. But I would argue what makes a good mom is someone who can show balance and within reason, and to be able to show that's a healthier thing, because otherwise it builds resentment, it builds frustration. It's not sustainable. It burns you out.
Absolutely. And speaking of the provision as well, right? We've spoken about moms who, have careers outside of the home, but I'm seeing also a recurrence, of moms who whose primary duties are within the home. So home management and child rearing. And there's this constant feeling of, I'm not good enough. I'm home. Everything should be in the right place, all the things should be picked up, and the meals should be gourmet and whatever other standards there is out there. And if I'm not doing that, I'm failing. I'm not good enough. And I find myself saying, your kids probably don't care that the toys are all over there, because they get to come back and play with it. This is a false standard that you've set for yourself that you're now disheartened by, or causing a ton of guilt. What do kids need? And I know we're almost out of time, but I don't know if we have like a minute or two to touch on, we've talked about being good enough, emotional responsiveness, but in terms of the basics, right? I say food, shelter, 30% responsive mom, and the kids are good. And the rest are,
I think really focusing on the quality of the connection, the quality and the deepness of the connection. And sure, it's important to respond to the needs and to make sure, of course, they're fed, they're safe, they're warm, they're clean, of course, like all those things. But then I would put emotional connection and connectedness and focusing on the quality of the connection and actually getting to know your kids as being, right up there in terms of
quality over quantity.
And when you do, then you're able to, in a way, move through frustrations a little easier, because then they know you love them for them. They know you're there for them. They know that like your intent and your deep desire is to like be there for them and love them unconditionally. And that even if you can't be there every single moment of or you can't satisfy all of their demands in terms of their meals or being there for every event or whatever, you're going to try to do it as much as possible, or more often than not. So
they're important enough that you're going to try, but you won't always be there 100% of the time, and they learn to be okay with that, just as it would be in the rest of the world.
Just as it would be in the rest of the world, and that you're going to help them learn how to deal with the frustration when that you can't, and you're going to also model for them. And you can, I think, one thing too is to kind of peel back the curtain a bit when you're frustrated yourself with like, oh, I was going to meet so-and-so, my friend, for lunch, and they canceled because they were sick, and I was bummed out a little bit, but then, you know, I did this other thing instead, and then we rescheduled for next week. So it's also important to, it's almost like scaffolding in a way to give your kid that, like, that's normal. This is, it's normal to be frustrated, disappointed, and have people not always, you know what I mean, it go your way. And this is how we deal with it. So teaching them that, and the repair. I would say, even if things don't go well, the great thing is you have infinite opportunities to get it right, or try to get it right the next time, because that's parenting. It's you've got unlimited opportunities. If you have a bad day, it's okay. Hopefully tomorrow will be better, and hopefully, you know, so.
Continuous. Thank you so much. So that will be all we have time for today. I feel like this conversation, there's still a lot more to go with it, so maybe we'll make another day. Thank you so much for spending time to tell us, and the number is a shocking 30%. I haven't looked at the last time. I can't wait to tell all the moms that I work with.
Yeah, take it easy, you know, go get your spa time, do your workout. Yeah, you'll be better for it. You'll be,
Absolutely.
you'll
and
be,
your kids will be better for it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Al-dhaher. She's a child and adult psychiatrist out in California with MindPath. And again, it's me, Dr. Bolanle. I can run be psychiatrist at Bright Minds MD service in New Jersey and New York, helping people feel better using fewer medications and wellness practices. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a fun conversation. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, Dr. Al-dhaher.
Thank you. Talk soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.